Live at 9, my name is Sheila Tsime, joined by Samson Kasumba for this extensive bulletin as we shine more light on COVID-19, the impact and the way forward. Now, to start us off tonight, the NRM Parliamentary Caucus has passed a motion to introduce one more position for Minister of State, bringing the total number of ministers to 80. The motion was proposed by the President and now awaits Parliament's approval. Kanari Mugume has the details.
The next cabinet that will be announced by the President soon will be of a total of 80 ministers if Parliament approves this amendment. This comes after the NRM Parliamentary Caucus adopted a motion to introduce one more position for Minister of State, bringing the total number of ministers from 79 to 80.
The President line up as 79 minus the President, but this including including the Vice President. Including the Vice President, the lineup. So I just want to add one Minister of Stateship for some reason which I will explain when it comes to the bigger debate.
The process was at first dragging after the NRM Party Secretariat proposed that the President names the caucus executive before any motion is passed.
You, as the head of state with the powers, you can appoint even a backbencher in writing to move this motion in the House.
The President, after consultation from the party lawyers, introduced the motion and promised to name the Vice President and the Prime Minister soon, who will then introduce the same motion on the floor of Parliament for debate.
I published the list, which I will do very soon. Then you meet as Parliament and you approve or reject my Vice President and my Prime Minister, and then the Prime Minister is the one who now brings that motion. That's what I was told.
The NRM legislators also used the same opportunity to show interest in different committees of the 11th Parliament.
The forms have been provided in order to enable the Secretariat and the Government Chiefs team to allocate the members to the various committees depending on their competencies, depending on their experience, and depending on their interest on where they would want to serve.
The party will wait to announce the members of committees pending a cabinet list that will be announced by the President. But no one knows when this will be, since the President is still playing cards close to his chest. Kanari Mugume, NBS, live at 9.
Moving on, the delay by the head of state to name a cabinet appears to be creating an awkward legal scenario, with ex-ministers still holding on to offices and entitlements of their former officers, even when it is clear that their tenure of office ended with the dissolution of cabinet. As Sabiti Joseph reports, some of the ex-ministers say they will stay put until their successors are named and sworn in.
Vehicles with the CM standing for Cabinet Minister and MS for Minister of State labels continue to ply the route to Parliament as men and women whose tenure of office expired months back continue to enjoy the trappings of power. One by one, the former big men and women are ushered out by their bodyguards who extend the usual salute, a salute to the office these men and women should have left long time ago. But why are these officials still holding on to government offices, property and privileges that they should no longer be entitled to?
That government vehicle was given to me, handed over to me by the person whom I succeeded. And I think the same trend should also happen.
At what point do these former big men and women plan to hand over these privileges? But what is the legal dictate? What does the Constitution say about the term of office of a minister?
The moment the term of office of the president expires, everything comes to an end. Anybody who was appointed by the president in that term ceases to hold any official or public office. And if the president is sworn in, then all authority is automatically vested in the president.
What options are on table for the head of state?
The president still retains the executive authority to assign anybody specific responsibility to carry out that assignment. But that assignment must be made in writing. So until the president makes an assignment in writing, nobody who served in a term that expired has a right either to move in a public car, to be in a public office, to take a public decision, or any decision that has executive repercussions.
What are the legal implications of these happenings?
It will have consequences, and I hope that these people who are now former ministers don't engage in acts that commit government in any way, because they will be challenged.
Since May 12th, when the head of state swore in, the country has run without a cabinet, and so we ask what happens in a ministry in such a scenario.
Then the ministry will be handled by the permanent secretary is there, and the ministry goes on. With advice from the president to the permanent secretary, the ministry will continue.
The awkward situation is also affecting the composition of the Parliamentary Commission, with the 3 backbench commissioners, Minister of Finance, and the government chief whip who sit on the Parliamentary Commission not yet designated by the ruling party. The offices of the Prime Minister and government chief whip also lead government business in the House, business which is supposed to be given priority. So unless the head of state does the needful, Parliament and Cabinet must be doing the stagnant monkey dance. Sabit Joseph, NBS Live at 9.
It's those times when you pull your trousers, fasten your belts, tie everything, because it is lockdown. Now, there were new measures released by the president yesterday about movement. Let's find out from my colleague Daniel Taya what is happening on the streets. Daniel is very much in Chibuye. Chibuye is a center of movement in the evening. Daniel, what is in Chibuye?
Well, Samson, as what I can see here is bumper-to-bumper traffic. Traffic is all the way from the clock tower in Kampala, all the way to Chibuye roundabout where I was a few moments ago, and now even on the Entebbe Road, the cars are fully packed. It is very difficult to find your way through this traffic, and there's only one road here that gets us to the other side in Entebbe, where we are meant to do an interview in a few moments from now. But there are still taxis on the road. There are still various motorists on the road. I think the challenge is that whereas the curfew time is 9 o'clock and everybody needs to be in their home by 9 o'clock, it's very difficult to control this, given that most of the Ugandans are using this public transport. The taxis are still on the road. They're still taking people. People are also still walking on the sides of the road. And I've also seen some bodas who have broken the rules by about 3 hours to be on the road at this moment, Samson.
Now, can we imagine, or can we even make a case for the fact that ever since the interview yesterday, mask wearing, from what you now see, is something we are taking seriously, or are Ugandans laissez-fairing themselves into this sort of lockdown?
Well, I think that from the speech yesterday, Ugandans have actually now started to take this new wave as something that is serious. Before, Ugandans had that their usual, laissez-fairness, as you had called it, Samson. But I think now, after the president actually made the statistics clear for Ugandans, but also put out some new measures to show the magnitude of the problem, Ugandans have now started wearing these masks and understanding that COVID-19 is back, and is back in a deadlier force with new variants, and even with a new wave of the old variant. And this time, unfortunately, for us younger ones, Samson, it is our age group that is most at risk. I think you guys will be taking a ride with this one. You have to keep your mask on, though.
Very briefly, you're a witness, you're a survivor, you beat COVID-19. In 5 words, tell the nation something you need to know. They don't want to be where you are, do they?
Nobody wants to go to Mulago, I must tell you that. I don't want to be back there anytime soon.
Daniel Taya beat off COVID-19, and he just put it the best way it can be. He doesn't want to go back to Mulago. You don't want to go back, but you want to go back to Sheila. Sheila?
Thank you, Samson. I guess we keep the masks on and sanitize. Moving on to other stories, experts have welcomed President Museveni's idea of express fines instead of jail term for those found flouting COVID-19 guidelines. They, however, warn that this new system is prone to corruption, as Daniel Lutaya reports.
424.
In his speech on Sunday, President Museveni announced a list of new measures to curb the spread of COVID-19, among them a new express penalty system for those found flouting the COVID-19 mitigating guidelines. In the absence of a minister, President Museveni ordered the Secretary to the Treasury to write a statutory declaration to effect this system. Economic policy analyst and lawyer Patrick Katabazi says the president's express penalty system, although well-intentioned, might hit some legal hurdles.
In an absence of the minister responsible for health, the president can issue a legally binding statutory instrument providing for these fees that he talked about. Not the secretary to the Treasury. The Secretary to the Treasury's mandate is providing a framework for collection and disbursements of money, including creating a vote where it is necessary.
Katabazi also points out loopholes in the system itself.
They go to the bar and arrest who is there, take them to the cell, and that's the end of the story. So tomorrow, the same bar will hold another event. If police does not come, then they will make that money. The next day they will do the same when police comes. So it keeps on and on and on and on. And at the end of the day, you're having a public policy intervention that is not working as it should have been. So I expect that even when this penalty is being thought about, let us have a too prolonged approach.
With an obvious decrease in jail numbers, if the express penalty system that the president announced is actualized, and an overwhelming optimism to this new project, the Anti-Corruption Coalition, however, is concerned that this new system is almost certainly prone to corruption.
We've seen quite a number of reports where the police has been cited as one of those agencies that people perceive to be most corrupt. We've seen what happens during the traffic offenses. I mean, a person will stop you, give them 5K and drive off. So this one is not going to be any different.
The executive director of the Anti-Corruption Coalition, Uganda, Sisi Kagaba, adds that it is corruption that is letting down all government's efforts to fight COVID-19.
COVID in the country is going to be defeated by the systemic corruption. We won't really. The mitigation is going to be very, very low because of corruption.
Omusirikale tagenda kulemererwa kukwata omutwalo gumu oba emitwalo ebiri ng'ate ku receipt book oba baagala emitwalo 5.
Paying money for when I'm not wearing mask to give me fine for money, that is not good. Because we don't have money. They're going to arrest all of us.
Uganda joins a list of other countries like the United Arab Emirates that have put in place fines for various COVID-19 related offences. Daniel Lutaya, NBS, live at 9.
Thank you, Daniel. Now, police have intensified investigations into the attempted murder of General Katumba Wamala, with various teams, including SFC, joining in the investigations. A number of eyewitnesses and persons believed to be vital in the investigations have been picked up by police, yet it is hesitant to declare the number of those arrested.
Police say they have intensified investigations into the shooting of former Works Minister in a concerted effort involving different security organs. Addressing the media, police spokesperson Fred Enanga indicated that investigations into the incident have intensified as several teams have joined to process acquired evidence, as well as study forensic and ballistic evidence attained.
The teams have redocumented the scene. They have recovered CCTV footages before and after the incident for further analysis and identification of the assailants. They have carried so far sufficient forensic analysis on the cartridges and bullets, and we've also obtained very good witness statements.
In the process, several eyewitnesses and area residents have ended up in custody of the army and police in what police has refused to call arrests, but rather identifying key persons of interest in the murder. Police has declined to mention the number of those arrested so far.
We want to tell you that we simply identified a few persons of interest based on the information that they could have had knowledge about this incident. And so we identified those few persons of interest and recorded their statements, although we are not considering them as suspects.
With several versions of stories in the public sphere about what happened, police say they are aware of the need to quickly give a thorough investigative report or risk distortion of facts by the public, especially on social media.
Much as we have several potential leads, we are still working towards the best lead that can help us in this very investigation. So we want to be very objective, and then we shall come up with a very good investigative report.
In the same vein, following the presidential address on COVID-19, where he announced partial lockdown measures, police has directed all territorial commanders to map out a security plan on how to implement the guidelines.
We are going to ensure that we monitor all this public transport intra-district to ensure that no more violations continue.
Choda Mubangizi, NBS, Live at 9.
Thank you, Jordan. Now, Samson, I think the Ministry of Health had, or we could say maybe they were overwhelmed because we're not receiving statistics of the COVID patients, but now we have been receiving them and we'll share some as of today with the public.
In case there's anybody who is still doubting this, let's talk numbers now. We're talking tests done, 5th June, new cases here. We're talking 1,026 there. We're also talking 47,760 cumulative recoveries. It says we have done a good job there. Then active cases on admission in health facilities, we're talking 739. Now that number is huge. Putting more on that number is certainly going to overwhelm the system. Now, cumulative confirmed cases is 53,961. Now you take, if you still are one that likes your mathematics, subtract 47,760 from 53,961. You know that our medical facilities are doing a very good job. Hence the number here, 383 deaths. We don't want to be losing 383. That's quite a number of persons to be buried. But looking at other nations, I think we are doing quite a good job there. Then in terms of those who have gone through that nasty test, I don't like it, especially the one through the nose. I hate it, but because of my journalistic duties, I've gone there. But a lot have also gone there. 1,151,421. Quite a number of those are journalists, because if you're going to cover the president, you're going to be there, as well as ministers and members of parliament. Now, new tests is 7,296, and the total number of persons vaccinated to death, good job there, is 748,676. A bulk of those have come in there after the massive vaccination that came through Kololoa here. We are even opening up new numbers. But this is not a very bad job. We can do better. We don't want this number to grow. That's why the kids are out of school. Now, Joseph Sabiti is very much on the road together with 4 of our colleagues, and we hear quite a number of Ugandans don't like Kampala all of a sudden. They want to go out. Joseph is at Namaiba. Joseph, you're still in Kampala. You don't have any plans to go out, but some are going. Let's find out from you. Who is going and where are they going?
All right, so we have observed a very interesting trend since we arrived here at Namaiba bus terminal, Samson. And for me, the highlight has been these boys and girls wearing school uniforms after the closure of schools, and they look every inch stranded. Many of them look like primary school kids, and they keep running away from the cameras, but donning school uniforms. I think that there's a situation at hand here. A number of schools, actually all the schools were closed, and so students left their schools, and many of them traveling to up-country destinations are actually stranded. For me, that is the highlight of what is happening here. And so I want to show you a bit of the situation here. I think that the numbers have increased and so many people want to go up country, especially the students, and the buses are not enough. And some of them have found company, they are joined by their mattresses and their suitcases. And so it looks like this is going to be their dormitory for the night, because looking at my clock, the time for curfew is on, and a lot of these students will actually not be being able to travel home. and so you continue to see, and you see that some of them are actually going to different parts of the country, including Gulu, Lira, Soroti, and as well as parts of eastern Uganda, and so many of them are stranded here. This is just one side of Namaiba bus terminal. Remember, these measures were taken, Samson, so that COVID can be contained, but look at the numbers here, and as well as look at those who are wearing masks, those who are chinning the mask, and those who do not know about any enforcement mechanism. So we close the schools, and our children are now exposed here in the parks. We're going to be speaking to the manager of this bus terminal to give us a picture of what exactly it has been like. But before we speak to Mr. Nelson Sekandi, I want to show you also that part of the park. And a very significant number of the people there are actually as well students that left the different schools. And so you see them with their mattresses, and as well as, many of them are not even able to wear the masks. You can see the two young girls there do not have masks on. One is chin masking. Over here, we have a number of students as well stranded. And so I think that today, if your child has not yet reached home, maybe they are hanging out with us on Live at 9 today. The very situation that I think that needs urgent attention, because yes, schools were closed and we have only 3 days to get people moving before the inter-district lockdown takes effect. But I don't think the purpose of closing the schools was so that children can come and pile themselves together and mix with those from different schools. And then we are closing the schools to contain COVID and sending the children to be exposed to COVID. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And only about 2 are wearing their masks properly. That is the situation we are now. Let's go to the conversation with the manager of this facility here, Mr. Nelson Sekandi, to give us exactly a picture of what their day has been since this directive was actually announced by His Excellency the President. He joins us live from Namaiva bus terminal here. Mr. Nelson Sekandi is the manager of this facility. A very good evening to you. Thank you for speaking to us. Since the President announced the measures, how has it impacted on this facility that you manage?
Well, thank you, Mr. Sabiti. Since yesterday, the President of the Republic of Uganda talked to us, and by exactly 5 a.m. very early in the morning, the numbers started increasing here in the park. And from 5 a.m. up to right now, the number is keeping on increasing. Even up to now, people are still coming from different directions to the bus park. Most of them are students and others are passengers.
All right. Looking at my clock, it's a few minutes past 9 p.m.
Yes.
And we know that there's supposed to be curfew implemented right now. This bus is still moving. What's the situation of the people who are here now?
Well, as you see around here, most of the buses are packed because of curfew. And the most problem is that these buses are taking half capacity. This has forced most of the passengers to remain here in the park. Reason being, they are taking half capacity, not taking full capacity.
Okay, let's talk about price of transport. You work within here. How has the directive impacted on the price of those for those who want to travel across different parts of the country?
Well, most of them, they have increased the price because the number of passengers are many. And the buses which are taking people like 40,000 right now, they're charging 80 to 70,000, 75,000. Now from Kampala to Lira, they're charging 40,000, but right now they're charging 80,000. And the number is going high.
Okay. Yes. You're in charge of this facility. Yes. What are you doing with the growing numbers that have... The measures were supposed to contain COVID.
Yes.
But looking at the numbers and the increment, how are you going to deal with this situation?
Well, what we've managed to do, we've tried to engage we've brought police on board, we have UPDF on board. They are trying to protect these people here from the park here. And right now, these passengers, they don't have where to go. Most of them have come from Kawempe, most of them are coming from Gayaza, and there is no way they can go back to their homes. So we have to make sure that we keep them here around the terminal so that they travel tomorrow early in the morning to their homes in the villages. Okay.
Have you tried to engage the authorities, KCCA, to find a way of dealing with this number? Because clearly, not just the people, but also you people work here at danger because of the numbers.
Well, we've tried to bring KCC on board. That's why I've told you we even have police. We have UPDF on board. But the problem is the number is keeping on increasing. And right now we don't have what to do seriously. Even these 3 days or 4 days which the president has given us, I'm saying it's not enough. We're actually requesting the president at least to add us more 5 days or at least a week to make sure these people travel. Most of them are even fearing that after this 1 week, they might lock us again down, the total lockdown. So that's why you see the number is keeping on increasing there and then.
Okay. Well, what is that one appeal you would want to make to the authorities, to those who are watching this broadcast, to help the situation in this facility?
Well, what the authority can help them is be giving us security just the way they are doing, and also making sure that they're enforcing people to follow the SOPs, of which you can see around the police is moving around. We try to engage them because of that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Thank you for allowing us back from here. And thank you for speaking to us. Mr. Nelson Sekandi is the manager of this facility here. And so the situation is that we close schools to manage COVID, and then the numbers have swollen in the parks, and then the students who left schools because of COVID are stranded, and then the chicken and the luggage are stranded as well with their owners, and the situation probably something that is going to need examination. I want to see if I can speak to one of the students just to see what they'll be able to say. Let me see if I can speak to this. All right. Hey, how are you doing? Don't run away from me. How are you? Joseph is my name. I work with NBS Television. Where are you supposed to be traveling to?
To Gulu.
To Gulu. Are you in touch with your parents? Just keep your mask on so that you stay safe. Are you in touch with your parents? What are they telling you?
That they sent a transport. Yes.
So do they know where you are? Have they talked to you since you left school?
To school.
Pardon?
They talked about school.
At school? So where are you going to sleep tonight? What do you plan to do?
The bus.
The bus?
Yes.
Okay. What has been your experience? How has the day been for you?
It was okay.
Okay. But what class are you in?
Senior 1.
Senior 1. All right. You've been in Senior 1 for so many terms now.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All the best. I hope you get transferred back to Gulu. That school child there from Excel High School going to Gulu, saying the parents sent money, and so they're waiting for him back home in Gulu. But that is the situation right here, Samson and Sheila. And so I think that we need to examine this, that we announced measures to curb COVID. But from what I have seen here, we are seeing more COVID coming to be shared in a central pool than actually what was happening in the different places. Do we actually need to examine the situation on the ground and find measures? Will the 3 days enable people to move? We're exiting here and heading to uptown Kampala just to see how the enforcement of curfew regulations is happening in other parts of the city. Samson and Sheila, I think it's time to hand back your mic.
Well, Joseph, Sheila and I think that we love you very much, but coming from where you are coming from, we don't want to be close to you in the name of Jesus, and we insist that nobody gets close to you until you've gotten all those clothes sanitized, including your wife who is watching. Let them not get close to you. We're in very, very tough days, but thank you so much for your very good service. The thing about COVID is that I have known persons whose parents have caught COVID-19, and it is painful that you can't get close to people you want. They are like a problem.
I know, and I think many people are taking it for granted until finally it has affected one of your own.
Soon we will know somebody who has COVID, or know somebody who knows somebody who is struggling to catch COVID. But we also know somebody who is out on the streets, and she is Shamim Nabakoza. If they are storytellers, this lady out here is a fantastic storyteller. Shamim, what is happening where you are?
Samson, first things first, as we moved to Waise, where we currently live at, many students, school children, are stuck on the roads that we have passed by, even behind here. Some of them have just run away from the cameras, but we can confirm to you that many children, and especially school children, are stuck on the road. So basically there's a question on whether there was readiness of whether these could really return home in the given hours and also be let free. We can question on how these can go home at this time. It's already 9+. And so that means we are likely to see many students sleep in police stations, if not on the roads, but we are not sure of how safe they are right there. Where we are, business is still as usual. As you can see in the background, some people are still trading, although it's getting a bit fading away. That's what is currently happening here, but we can confirm to you that security is on the road, and they're trying to see that the directives of the president, especially on the curfew, and equally on how people move and how transport moves on the road is. We can confirm to you that the taxis on the road are very few, and people are still stranded in the roundabout of Waise. Many people are still stranded, inclusive of the students that we have been seeing on the road. And some of them have their parents with them, but they are still stuck. People are still moving around with their businesses. Some of them are still operating as usual, but security is quite on the road trying to man the security situation in the country, as has been directed by the president.
I mean, when we talk Bwaise, we are talking persons not certainly middle income. We're talking persons that you would generally call Omuntu Wawansi. Do they seem to be concerned? Do they seem to be wearing masks? Or are they going about their business, literally their hustle, saying that to feed the stomach is more important than caring about COVID-19? At least from what you see.
From what we have been seeing earlier, people are seemingly heeding to the directives of the president, especially wearing masks. But the crowds are equally visible. You cannot tell who is moving where and whether they're sure of the next person they're moving next to. Samson, what is key to understand is we can now not be sure of who is COVID-19 positive because many people are moving against each other, and it's hard to tell whether only having a mask on you can safeguard you.
Thank you very much, Shamim. A little earlier, I was around a bus park that goes the Bugerere side, Bugema, all those places. It seemed to be very crowded. Sheila, it's those stories about COVID. But if there's anybody who's been reporting COVID and seems to understand COVID very well, has been out there in the ICU, it is our Zahara Namuli. And chance is that we have her on tonight. Zahara, I don't think that anybody has been in the ICU the way you have been. You've known persons who have caught COVID, persons who have fought COVID. Now we have new directive. What's the story of the evening, Zahara?
Thank you so much, Samson Kasumba and all the viewers of NBS television. I am at Nambole COVID-19 non-traditional isolation facility. These are facilities that were initially set up as holding places for people who had COVID-19 but did not have were not severely sick, just had mild symptoms. But I talk to you now. The doctor was actually supposed to talk to, that is Dr. Ivan Chisule, could not make it for this interview because there were patients yearning to have him attend to them. And right now, most of them, where we are, behind me is what has been labeled as the red zone. The patients here critically need oxygen, but since the facility had not been set up as a hospital, many of these things are still lacking. Right now, there are 90 patients admitted in there, and Dr. Chisule told us many of the patients walk in the night, maybe when no one is seeing them, so they leave home and walk in, come to Nambole, and they are admitted. So the person you saw last evening, you will not see them maybe for the next 10 to 14 days when they will be getting care here. That is how bad the situation is. People are still stigmatized, so they cannot come here during the day because they are scared somebody will see them saunter in to the stadium to get COVID-19 care. There are 90 patients here, but since the facility was opened, that is on 27th May, they have lost 6 patients. The mathematicians will tell you that translates into 2 lives lost per day in Nambole, a non-traditional isolation facility. The president said there are several other facilities going to be opened up in various regions, but unfortunately, if they are not equipped with the oxygen that we see here today, they may not actually live to meet the demands of the Wananchi, I should say, because since Mulago and all the other referral hospitals are saying their beds, they have run out of space, facilities like these that have been labeled the non-traditional facilities are the points of care for the Ugandans who cannot afford care in the other private facilities. Most private facilities are asking for a deposit of 2 million shillings or 5 million shillings for you to be admitted. So many people are not running there. So you either do the home care or you find yourself a place in Nambole. The situation is not all rosy. The human resource is still minimal, according to the staff that we have tried to interact with. They say they have actually already left their homes. They do not stay with their family. They are camped here at Nambole to be able to tend to the patients. And like last year, when they had time actually to walk out because there was no patient that needed them, the patients admitted in Nambole right now actually do need a standby health team to tend to them because they are severe and mild. Very few of them actually can self-support. At the moment, caretakers are allowed to come in and drop a few things to their people who are admitted here, but that is also being restricted because there are fears of cross-infection by the caretakers. So to the various people that would like to come to Nambole, Gate 5 has been opened. You just walk in, show in your results, and you will be given a bed capacity of 1,300 beds, at least according to President Museveni yesterday. They say the beds alone may not be able to help them because all the patients who come here do not only need the beds, but they also need the other facilities that come along to be able to manage them effectively. So we will wait on to see, because they say the Ministry of Health has promised them that they will be sending in more human resource and more facilities to use to be able to help these patients, because many of them later on cannot be transferred to the other health facilities like Mulago, which is also full, and their ICUs are full. So some of the patients who have left this place actually have been referred to Jinja Referral Hospital and Mbale. So you leave Kampala and you go to the other facilities. There is no family there. That is when the question is, are you doing enough as an individual to protect yourself from COVID-19 amidst the meager resources that are there in the health facilities? That is a question that you can only answer. There is no ICU in Nambole, but there are minimal HDU facilities that can be used for patients who actually need them. I am Zahara Namali. Back to you at the Political Command Center.
Zara, thank you so much for coming back, but you are not going anywhere yet. Sheila wants to ask something.
Zahara, thank you very much for that comprehensive report. Unlike the first COVID wave, the second one is not sparing our little ones. I want to know if there are any children at Nambole.
I have been told that there are actually school-going children admitted here. For the few schools that were willing to disclose that they had a problem at hand, some of the students are admitted here. There are about 5 of them, school-going age children. Actually, those that came straight from school, not from their homes. They are admitted here, but they're not doing so bad, according to the medics attending to them.
Sarah, thank you very much. Like we've been telling everybody, I don't think you need a lecture on sanitizing. You know sanitizing more than anybody else. You've been the sanitizing whip here at the Political Command Center, so you know exactly what to do. One of the things I've learned, that you don't want to get to a situation in which you need oxygen, because our ability to produce it has been overrun by the ability to consume that. Is that what you've also heard?
Definitely.
But we also do hear that Benson Ngom is with us. Benson, the last time round when we did this, you did so many tests and many of those were negative. You continue to be very negative, but you are covering a story on COVID-19. What is the situation and the story where you are, apart from very beautiful streets?
Samson, just to let you know, I'm still negative, and I tested negative just a few days ago. But again, it's a very quiet evening in the streets of Gulu, as the president yesterday did announce a new directive on how to handle the second wave of COVID-19. But I just want to give you and Ugandans the situation in northern Uganda. And we're talking about the ICUs, we are talking about the regional referral hospitals in Acholi and Lao sub-region. If you go to Gulu Regional Referral Hospital alone, Samson, we have 11 patients that have been admitted at the moment. From the reports that we've been able to get, 6 patients are in the ICU, 2 patients out of 11 are not in the ICU, but they're consuming 5 liters per minute of oxygen, and then 20 liters per minute. That tells you how dire the situation is. We have 163 under home-based management, the new system that the Ministry of Health and Government of Uganda did introduce. Now let's cross to Lira sub-region. Lira Regional Referral Hospital do have 23 admitted cases of COVID-19 in the hospital. We've been made 9 are on oxygen and 2 are succumbed to COVID-19. Now, if you cross to Lacho Hospital, I beg your pardon, there is a Catholic-funded facility. We have 20 patients that have been admitted at the moment, but also we have 11 who are on the ICU ward. Now let's cross to Amoro district, which has been the most interesting district concerning COVID-19 because it's a border district which borders South Sudan. We have 102 cases as we speak at the moment, and we have been told 53 of them are students of Restore Academy. 1 is a student of St. Mary's College, and then 49 of them are truck drivers. Now let's cross to Lamour. Lamour as well is a border district, Samson. We understand Lamour crosses to South Sudan and also borders Amuru. We have 127 cases, and these are local cases. Now, Samson, there's something that we've been able to get also from the medics who work at the regional referral hospitals in this part of the region and St. Mary's Hospital, Lecho. The numbers are building up. The spaces are not there anymore. At the ICU ward at the regional referral hospital, there's no bed that has ICU now, the same as at Lecho Hospital, and we've been told numbers of people have been sent for the home care system. But again, also the big question that has been all over the space is about the home care system. The argument from the different medics in this part of the region that the home care system seemed not to be working, because, give an example, today I spoke to the RDC of Amur Osborne Chengu, did say that they failed to track, especially truck drivers who come from South Sudan, and many of these people, some of them are transiting to Kenya, some of them are going to central part of this country, some of them are going to Soroti, Mbale, and different parts, and as they cross the border, it's very hard to tap on them. What they can only give them their letters, and sometimes they call the LC system within their spaces. So it's quite a very unique situation that we have. But again, concerning what we see at the moment in Gulu, today alone we have seen a lot of enforcement. I've just seen the OC of Gulu University police station up on the Mubere trying to patrol the town. So we are seeing literally seeing very few trucks that are moving. And I just can't give you an example. This is a prison van that is crossing through. This is how the street looks like, Samson. So probably that is what we see at the moment, and again tomorrow probably we shall be seeing what the enforcement will bring to this town, but that is so far how the cases do stand in the northern part of this region.
Thank you so much, Benson Ongoma. I want to confirm to our viewers who may be doubting Thomas's that you are 332 kilometers from Kampala and you're not reporting from anywhere in Europe. That's Gulu, and that's what it looks like in the night.
Beautiful
That's Gulu
city.
in the night. 332 kilometers from the capital.
Definitely. And Samson, I don't know if you have seen a WhatsApp message that has been making rounds today. I think for me that really broke me, because the president was speaking of schools and how some schools were withholding information of students that were COVID-19 positive. And we saw a WhatsApp message making rounds today of a parent who had gone to pick their child and the child was positive. And other cases, friends, it was the same case. I think it's very inhumane of the schools to keep these children when they're sick.
I've even had nasty ones where schools disconnected phones so that information doesn't come out of the school to get to parents. My daughter told me about 3/4 of the school had flu or cough, but nobody tested positive
Were
yet.
they testing anyway?
Thankfully, the president closed schools at the right time,
I think that
knowing
was a
what
very
is
good
going
move.
on. But the president never closed brakes for Bulletin, so let's go. Now, the judiciary has suspended operations for 42 days in the wake of COVID-19 and the president's address. And thankfully tonight, we have the spokesperson of the judiciary, Mr. Karimani James, with us tonight. And James, thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you've ever heard that justice delayed is justice denied. Would you accept that it is fair that the judiciary be accused for delaying justice and in effect denying it?
Thank you very much, Samson. We all must know that yes, justice delayed is justice denied, but we have got to put life first. Given the situation that is pertaining at the moment, the growing numbers of patients and the courts being one of the areas where there is the big number that congregate, the Chief Justice, following the measures that were announced by the President, the Honorable the Chief Justice had to come out and also ensure that there are measures that can control the spread in as far as the courts are concerned. As we speak now, we have had some cases already which have been reported in our courts amidst our staff, who include both the judicial officers and the support staff. And it is believed they could have contracted this virus from their operations. So the Chief Justice had to come in and ensure that in our operations we don't contract this disease, and neither should we spread it to our court users. So at the moment, the court operations have been suspended for a period of 42 days. However, we shall be handling matters which are emergency in nature. Those will continue to be handled, and these include applications for bail, some of the applications which are urgent in nature, like habeas corpus, some applications which require urgent attention, like where people seek applications to stop some activities which have to be stopped. So the numbers of our staff have got to be toned down, and therefore we shall have one judicial officer at every court with the support staff that they need to ensure that they serve in as far as the urgent matters are concerned. We were supposed to start some cases of election petitions. They were supposed to be heard this month, but given the nature of those cases, which require the judges to move from one place to another, the lawyers moving from Kampala to up-country in order to handle these petitions, given the situation that we are in, the Chief Justice had also to put them on hold until after the 42 days, where the situation will be monitored, and then that is when we can be able to start the hearing of these petitions. So,
if I may interrupt, because we're running out of time, 1, 2, does that include court-martial? And 2, this is going to add to an already existing problem of case backlog in a minute, isn't it?
The court-martial is not under the judiciary. It is under a different arrangement. So the measures which have been announced do not cover the court-martial. Yes, there will be an increase in a backlog because during the 42 days, there will not be the normal hearings we should have had, but we must adhere because we have got to have life in order to come back and deal with the rest of the situation.
Thank you very much. Thankfully, none of us, between you and myself, will need the courts during the time when they've been closed. And pleasure there speaking to James Karimani, who is the spokesperson of the judiciary. You don't want to need that service because it is off. I don't want to, and I pray you don't. The last time round, when there was a lockdown, I almost needed that service.
I hope this time you won't, because it is a second wave, so yeah. I don't know if you'll escape if you need.
From what I know, after this bulletin, I'll get home.
Definitely you will. Now, moving on from that, Samson, we are now speaking to Major General Leopold Chanda, still speaking COVID. He is the outgoing chairman of the Interagency Security Joint Task Force. He has been at the helm of fighting COVID on the end of security. Afande, thank you very much for joining us. As you leave this sensitive committee, what are some of the challenges and how do you advise that we move forward, especially with this second wave?
Good evening, Sheila and Samson, and thank you very much for having me here this evening. Quick background, the Interagency Joint Task Force was set up on the 22nd of March, 2020. And as you all know, that was at the peak of the pandemic, when it just kind of, hit us here. And there was a lot of fear. But we went in, were given guidelines to monitor compliance of the SOPs that had been laid out, inspect government MDAs and private installations that we thought had a lot of people and were not following the SOPs. And then out of that, make recommendations to the strategic leadership to see how we can further combat the pandemic. The agency is composed of seven different agencies and some key departments. Now, what is happening today? We are seeing a resurgence. Why is that happening? Of course, we noticed that one, people are no longer following the SOPs, and then, of course, there were also high-risk countries that were now bring it into us. This was a big challenge, and I think the only way we can get out of this is to make sure now the super spreaders, like the massive crowds, are contained, are controlled, Indoor activities are completely, as much as possible, limited. Overnight meetings that were illegal, people going to bars, people going to discos, and then long durations of meetings and travel. Now, we noticed, worldwide, everybody thought that the younger population was not vulnerable at the time. So these young people went out and they were just enjoying themselves. They kept sneaking out and going to these places. So it is also possible that what they did may have even brought about a stronger virus that now is spreading.
Afande, let me just interrupt you a bit. There are two sides, two conversations that have been had about the role of security in such events or such incidents, with one side saying they do not want security involved in these activities, and the other side saying that maybe we need security for better organization and also with your background of discipline. What do you say, or how do you say that the role of security in these incidents helped us deal with the first wave?
Sheila, at the beginning, this thing was a scare. Everybody was scared. And the security or the military or the forces are trained to be able to be extra brave. So it really needed the military at that time, the police and the different agencies. But now, at least, it is no longer something new. It's not that scary. We know about it. And I think our problem now is in discipline. People are not following the SOPs. People are not doing what they are supposed to be doing. So the other areas now, the main line, the Ministry of Health, can actually, I think, handle it. Now, the combat, the fighting of the virus was broken down into regional task forces and district task forces and even village health teams. Now, if those individuals are properly trained, I'm sure they can handle it. It should not be a problem, Sheila. It can be done.
To Ugandans,
I have got two messages. One, we all wear a mask, but how many people remember to sanitize before they remove their mask? How do I keep my mask? I might throw it there and then I put it in my pocket and then I put it back on my face. Now, the mask is no longer clean. So I have brought the virus right to my mouth and my nose, and I'll keep breathing it in. So the discipline of wearing the mask, it is not just simply wearing the mask, but sanitize when you have to remove your mask, sanitize before you put it on, and keep it in a clean, safe place at all times. These prohibitive penalties. People are playing around. People don't care. I was told that actually in the UK, if somebody flouted an SOP, you pay up to a fine of £10,000, and that's quite a bit of money. So I think that is the only way to get people to be disciplined. I think those two would be some things that, of course, apart from enforcing the SOPs, those two areas should be able to take us out of the woods.
Very much for joining us, Major General Leopold Chanda. They are speaking on behalf of the COVID task force. And now, Samson, what do you have for us?
Sheila, besides that, I think that military fatigue and the red peeps do look very, very beautiful for TV, especially when somebody is disciplined, as Leopold Chanda wears them. But also talking somebody else who's very smart for their job, Cuthbert Chigozi is in the Albertine region. Cuthbert, there are not too many people in COVID at past 9 p.m. who are going to be wearing tie and pocket square that smart in the night. Those are street lights in the Albertine region, aren't they? Tell us a story about COVID there.
Well, Samson, I'll tell you the story about COVID-19 this way. Is something probably after the president announced a second wave of a lockdown, it sent shockwaves among the locals here. But of course, it hasn't yet sunk in well, because if you talk about the border guys, as of now, they're playing catch and mouth with police, where once police is this side, they're hiding the other side. And where actually most of them are going ahead to call themselves and say that, hey, police is here. And actually, the clear part of that is one gentleman behind me is a border guy, and he's just, because I'm standing here at the stage where there are around 3 motorcycles, and they're just waiting for a few people who are also still moving around town. Now, you did hint about the issue of mask wearing. Now, mask wearing is something probably is done by the people who feel they have to stay safe, they have to adhere to the SOPs, and those who feel, well, I'm safe no matter what, you find that they are not putting on their masks. And it is something here the task force is saying it is wants to go ahead and fight to see that people go ahead to put on their masks. And away from that, the other strange part of it once it comes to COVID-19 is that the task force says they're out of funds, but now a second wave has come. How are they going to see that they control the spread of the virus? How are going to they to see that they move ahead with their day-to-day work? Because they say they don't have funds, and once it comes to the team that is responsible for burying patients who have died of COVID-19 or suspected to have died of COVID-19, one is to pay money, which is also something people are saying it is hard for them because they cannot go ahead and have somebody who has died, and again they go ahead to pay the burial team to go ahead and go ahead to help them in the burial ceremony, which is also something really not good to them. So we are waiting to see how is the district task force going to handle the second wave of COVID-19 in a situation where there are no funds. And of course, the locals themselves are waiting to see what is going to be done next because they feel have not yet accepted the fact that there's a second lockdown and they have to adhere to the SOPs. And as we talk as of now, we're just watching the patrol going through Hoima town to enforce the curfew. But of course, with anything that will happen here, Samson, Chicos will be able here to give you all the latest from the Bunyoro sub-region. Samson.
Not letting you off your hustle yet. One more question maybe too. Are there persons who are coming from Kampala coming back home to spend the lockdown home? Because the whole point of the lockdown, at least from my understanding of the president, was that people who have a lot of COVID in Kampala don't take it up country. Are people pouring into the places where you are?
Now, those coming in from Kampala to Hoima are indeed quite many, and that was evident today in the Hoima taxi park. We talk about the bus parks. There was quite a huge number of people, and of course, you also talk about those coming from Hoima, probably going to in the outside, like let's say the outskirts of Hoima. They're all going there, and you would wonder really where are they going? Is it where they're staying, or do they want to go there so as the lockdown can find them there? But of course, the people coming in from Kampala, there are quite many, and of course, others are like it is better off being in the village than being in the urban center in Kampala once it comes to the lockdown. Once it bites harder, the situation or the life there is a little bit hard for them. But in the village, it is easy for one to get some piece of cassava, some piece of sweet potato. But we are waiting to see. But of course, also talk about the school children. They have also been going to Kampala, and others have been coming to Kampala. So it has just been a vice versa. And of course, other people have gone ahead to plan how are they going to manage the ban on public transport within the district. So you find that some are saying that they will go and reach the district border points and sneak through to the other district, and in that way they will find ways how to reach various districts. But of course, last time, once there was a lockdown, police managed to put some barricade, like they managed to go ahead and cordon off the borders where they expect people to sneak out of the district. But let's wait and see if that will happen. And also, Samson, on the other hand, if we talk about movement outside the district, now in Hoima, neighboring the Lake Albert movement there was also cordoned off. And we know this is the situation where many people come into Hoima district using the lake from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Pakwach, all that to Evelisa. This time round, we are yet to see will movement also be controlled on the lake showers, because as we talk, people are still coming in and others are still going out. Samson.
Well, tell those chaps on your right that it's not a rumor, they are on live TV. And two, all your relatives are very happy that they raised a very smart, intelligent man. I've received a message. They're so proud of how sharply you're dressed tonight. Cuthbert Chigozi is very much in the Albertine region. You just happen to be watching us live, reporting and giving you reports from across the place on what the situation is after the president made his address yesterday. Sheila and myself on. Now let's take you to the east. Wisdom is supposed to come from there. We hope it does. Cuthbert Chigozi has been in the Albertine, but we do have Hakim Kanyere here in the night of Ginger. Hakim, we are hearing in Hoima that when the president locked to stop COVID getting up country, Ugandans had a completely different story. They are pouring into their villages. Are they pouring into Jinja and heading out of Jinja, going to all sorts of villages? From what you know, what else is the story, Hakim?
Samson, actually, the comprehensive coverage about COVID-19 still continues here at NBS, the Political Command Center. And as you have said, it is indeed true that I've seen a number of people who have been moving from here and there, especially the students. Samson and Sheila, you know very well that Busoga sub-region is one of the education hubs with quite a number of schools. So I've seen a number of students who are moving away from the Jinja city, going to their respective villages. And also I've seen some people who are coming from Kampala and also coming here in Jinja. And however, the the transport fares have been hiked just because there are a number of people who are moving here and there. However, there are two questions, especially among the transport people who are operating transport border borders, and then those who are in taxi business. They are asking, Jinja, we have Jinja Metropolitan, we have Injeru, which is just a stone throw away from Jinja. So there are people who sleep across the Nile and then they work here in Jinja. But according to the presidential directive, no person is supposed to cross a district to come to Jinja. So now there is a dilemma here. How are those people going to come from Injeru, which is just 5 kilometers away from Jinja, and then entering here? Because they work in Jinja, but they sleep across the Nile. So that's one of the reasons. The other question is, we have the lake shores, since Jinja is surrounded with Lake Victoria. So there are people who are moving on boats, but the president didn't mention about boats or water transport. So that's also one of the questions that are here in Jinja. But in the morning, I tried to move here and there. I found quite a number of people who are non-compliant. You find that so many of them are not wearing masks. But at the moment, you find that the SOPs are being followed. The curfew time, you find that the men in uniform have done very tremendously, and they are not allowing people to move here and there. As you can see behind me, the men in uniform, they are the ones who are moving around the streets. Here I am at the main street, and you find there are no movement or limited movement, especially by the people, the motorists and then the border riders. They followed those SOPs of curfew, as they are supposed to stop at exactly 7 p.m. So they stopped. But the operators of supermarkets, I observed that some of the operators of supermarkets went ahead to violate some of the SOPs that were put up by the president, because by 8 I found one of the supermarkets here in the city operating. So that's one of the observations I made. But however, the men in uniform are on the streets moving here and there, especially the Uganda police and also the UPDF. That is the situation here, like in Jinja. But in the health-wise, I've been at Jinja Regional Referral Hospital. I've seen a number of patients who are being ferried from different districts, since Jinja Regional Referral Hospital is one of the biggest hospitals in the region here. So they have been moved from different districts as far as Busia to Jinja Regional Referral Hospital. Others came from Nambole. So that's the situation here in Jinja. Back to you at the Political Command Center.
Well, Hakim Kanyera can tell you that many kids watching this story from Jinja are going to choose to become journalists. You've just made journalists very, very cool thing for kids out there in Busoga. Now, Sheila, let's talk parents here. You're a parent, I am a parent. We no longer know when a term begins and when it ends. You pay several millions, you take them to school, 3 weeks later, they are back. The funny thing is, when they stay home and study online, they go to school and find out that in a class of 200, only 20 studied. So they repeat the stuff.
The same.
It is very interesting. Is that the same, or those of you doing Cambridge, it's different?
It's the same, and as they go to school, you shop for them stuff that they will use at school. And when they break off after the 2 weeks, they come home and enjoy all that stuff as they wait. This time we wait for 42. 42. Before the president comes back again. Yeah, but we're not sure that when he comes back, they will go to school. So I guess we need to learn to live with COVID.
Mr. President, let me tell you what I now know from this bulletin. You stopped us going up country so that COVID stays within Kampala and Wakiso and Mukono. You know what, Mr. President? They've just taken COVID to the village. I don't think 42 is going to be enough. we might be in this for some time. We got a break or not?
Yes, we do. And we'll be coming back with Daniel Lutaya, who will be having someone from the health sector. Welcome back. We're still speaking COVID, and we'll be joining Daniel Lutaya, who will be speaking to Dr. Misaka Wanyengera, who is the chairman COVID-19 Scientific Committee. Daniel?
All right. Well, we are in Chitende along Entebbe Road, and we're going to be talking about COVID-19 and this second wave, trying to understand how it came around and also what can be done, what has been done elsewhere in the world, and the fact that we are not alone in this fight. I'll be speaking to a man who has fought the virus since it came here. There's also a man who has fought the Ebola crisis in Uganda. Is Dr. Misaki Wanyengera. He's the chairperson of the Scientific Advisory Committee. Whenever the president speaks about the scientists giving him advice, he's probably one of them. Good evening, Doctor. You're live on NBS television.
Good evening, Daniel. Good evening, viewers.
Let's start with this second wave. When did you, as scientists, start seeing that we are going in the way of a second wave?
Well, we began noticing this around March, the first week of March. If Ugandans can remember, around January we had our numbers drop almost to zero, and then afterwards we carried on through February. But suddenly around March we began seeing numbers rise. The numbers that were under 10 were suddenly in the tens. So we're beginning to every day catch about 10 to 20 people. And this took us some time. It took us about a month, and then suddenly we jumped to 50 cases. So by the first week of April, we were having 50 cases per day. And within a span of 2 weeks, those numbers suddenly jumped to 100 cases per day. And it took us about 1 week to have the numbers jump to 200. And the last week of May, we experienced something funny in the sense that we had numbers coming close to 200 per day. And that last week we recorded close to 1,300 cases a day. And clearly for us, we've been watching these numbers for some time. Of course, initially we noticed clusters left to right, just characterized by a few districts. But later on, the situation began becoming homogeneous. And this is literally almost everywhere now in the country. There are districts that are recording more, like Kampala, Wakiso, and then Karamoja, Gulu, Alua, Gulu, around Gulu, but clearly from what we see is that the epidemic now is literally littered everywhere.
Okay, well, let's take you back a little bit. When COVID-19 came to Uganda first time, and we went into the lockdowns, the talk was to flatten the curve.
Yes.
And we tried.
Yes.
And we did that.
Yes.
Why do we have a second wave? What did we do wrong? What happened?
So listen, people must understand the reason why we locked down in the first wave and the reason we are locking down in the second wave. The purpose of the lockdown in the first wave was aimed at preventing the importation of the disease, because this was largely an imported disease. If you realize, our first case actually came in from Dubai, a 38-year-old gentleman that you probably clearly remember. Yeah. And then we had to run, that was about the 21st of March, we had to rush very fast and make sure that we acquired the register of all the travelers that had come in the past 1 week. And we had to follow up all these people. And the idea was to make sure that we catch anybody that had come in. Now, that was effective, and it worked so well in the sense that it prevented the penetration of the disease into the community. And because we had, it took us a long time, and then we began noticing a few clusters occurring left to right. And essentially, by the time we hit community transmission, which was about August last year, we had done really a good job. And partly the reason why we suddenly hit community transmission were the election, the activities. Remember, we also began opening up, lifting the restrictions. And then, of course, the elections came in, the mass gatherings that came with the parties and other things, churches equally, opening up of schools. That drove the pandemic to rise, and our numbers grew all through August, November, going up, peaked around December, January, and then suddenly fell. So the fall was largely because of temperature variations, and this is one of the things that people have to understand. Some epidemics are sporadic; they just show up suddenly from nowhere. Like Ebola, occasionally we have these sporadic outbreaks. Some are seasonal, like cholera. When we get cholera outbreaks every time we have the rains, the rains come, we know that there are communities living in areas where the water access to clean water is not sustainable or adequate enough, and suddenly cholera outbreaks break out and typhoid outbreaks grow up. For a sustained pandemic like this, it follows harmonics, and many times the interplay is between the weather and the measures that we actually bring in to try to control this. So we have a second wave largely because we entered a dry season. Our numbers threaten to fall down. But also you must understand that very intensive work was put in, including trying to curb down on gatherings, particularly driven by the campaigns, to make sure that there is not a lot of transmission taking place in the country. But like it is for, these kind of pandemics, that fall in numbers was short-lived. We suddenly got the rainy season coming, and then our numbers began to come back again and rise, telling you that we had not eradicated the disease from the community. It simply went down because the weather was high. We're talking about a virus that is heavily stable in the environment. When it lands on surfaces, it can stay for hours. But yes, when the temperatures change, you have less stability of that virus.
What do we know so far about the efficacy, let me call it that, of this virus right now? Because it looks like this second wave of COVID-19 is killing a lot of people, but it's also going after the younger generation.
Exactly.
The other virus that we had at the start was, some young people were saying for them they will not, and you used to hear the talk was a mitima diakalu for the young people, because it was something that was looked at as that for the elderly. What do we know so far with the science? What is the science saying?
So we clearly anticipated that the second wave would be different, largely because the second wave is being characterized by variants. When we had the first wave, the original virus from Wuhan largely characterized much. There were deviations, slight deviations, but much of the sequences were similar. When a virus infects a human body, the human body attempts to fight off the virus. And in the process of trying to fight off, this is an RNA virus, which is a little bit unstable in the sense that we actually use the term promiscuous. It tends to attempt to elude the immune system.
Of the body, yes.
And the way it does that is literally to change its structure. It's simply like trying to shoot at you and then you dodge. So you have to change your structure in order to do this. And so in the process of the long stay of the virus here, and in absence of effective therapeutics and vaccines, the virus has been replicating heavily in people. And because of that, the virus changes. And that's why you see we have these variants that we've denoted. Initially, on basis of countries of origin, but now we've changed, of course, that nomenclature, and Uganda already is recorded close to 5 variants in the country.
Our own?
So, yes, our own country. These variants, some are imported. We have one Ugandan variant, which is
Ugandan variant,
yes, which we'll call the A123 variant, but we have the Indian variant, which is the B1617. We have the UK variant, the B117. We have the South African variant, which we denote the B1356. And then we have a variant there that we've labeled the Nigerian variant. And it's also present here in Uganda. What is characteristic of these variants? They are associated with, they are more easily transmitted. But in addition to being more easily transmitted, they are associated with more severe disease. And as a result of that, there are 3 things that I want us to understand. Younger people, unlike senior people, are more active in the community. They go out, they are more socially active. They are also the people that go literally looking for bread to fend for the senior people. But at the same time, of course, you know that socially these are the most active people in terms of interaction with others, but also in terms of entertainment, going to bars and other places. So they are literally more at risk. So the situation we had in the first wave, where clearly, if you look at our data, the most affected people were those above 50.
Yes.
The situation we have now is that the most affected people are those between 30 to 39, and then followed by the 20 to 29. And these people are actually getting infected and suddenly getting severe disease. And this is largely because of the variants that we have. Clearly, we have a situation here that I think, you cannot talk about safety on basis of your age, because in countries like Brazil, we've seen even infants literally die.
Let me just ask you this before we go back to studio. I've been looking at the numbers, and there are people, about 65,000 or so Ugandans, who have taken the 2 jabs of AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yes.
But then the biggest chunk of people, close to 1 million, have actually only had 1 jab of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yes.
Are those people also protected to some extent?
To some extent,
does it help?
Yes, it does help.
To what extent?
So the percentages that we see is that if you are vaccinated with 1 jab, you have between 62 to 70 chance of protection. That chance shoots up to about 92 when you get a second shot. Now, it is important that people understand that for many Ugandans, I was among the first people to receive my second shot. I received my second shot about 2 weeks ago, and probably 3 days now. When you get your second shot, it takes some time, between 2 to 4 weeks, for you to build enough immunity to be able to fight the virus. So
you have to keep protecting yourself during that time?
During that time. So many of us are still vulnerable, even if we've gotten a second jab. For the few people that have gotten a second jab, many of us are still vulnerable. So we need to continue using our masks. And we need to keep social distancing. We need to wash our hands until probably about a month. It's also important for people to understand that when we talk about efficacy, it's not an absolute number. People need to understand that this number plays out in the population. If you have 100 people and you have vaccinated 100 people and the efficacy is 92, so it means that about 92 people will be protected
and they can't
against
transmit.
infection. Against infection, and if they got infected, they will have lesser viral load. That's why they tend to have lesser less severe disease, but also they tend to transmit lesser. But you'll have the other group vaccinated, about 8 people, that will still get infected, probably get severe disease, and it does happen. But this thing, the efficacy for the vaccine needs to play out on a larger scale. The more the people we vaccinate, the easier the chance is that we will protect ourselves. And that's why we talk about the concept of herd immunity.
All right. That's Dr. Misaki Wayengera. He's the chairperson of the COVID-19 Scientific Advisory Committee, people that are fighting this disease. But you and I can fight it too. You just need to wear your mask and social distance. It's as simple as that. You don't have to be a doctor like him to actually do scientific work. So we're fighting the virus together. Back to you, Samson, at the Political Command Center.
Thank you very much, Daniel Taya. We can basically say that sanitization and wearing of masks, nayo eyengede, if you know what I mean. Daniel Taya out there in the night for us. It's a very long bulletin, this, so you want to do all you can to stay out and about. So there's a bit of fruit here to keep ourselves in the thing. Now here we do have Gerald Matemu. Gerald is a towering figure, the tallest journalist that I know in the Ugandan circuit, but he's in the east to give us what the Bamasaba are doing to protect themselves from COVID-19. Gerald, a very good evening in the night. People coming and pouring in from Kampala, bringing with them everything and anything near COVID. What have you seen?
Thank you, Samson. Yes, indeed, people are moving from Kampala and other regions to this region, and also there are people moving from Bali and the neighborhood to other regions. Like, for instance, today we had many people, of course, coming majorly from Kampala, returning to their homes, especially to their villages, especially at a time like this when they're not sure of how it is going to be, how they are going to manage, especially financially, during the 42 days of lockdown. But also, still today in the afternoon, I was in one of the offices where an essential worker was asking for permission from his supervisor to travel to a faraway district, to his village. And of course, his supervisor suspected that this was just a move to see that he moves back to the village and is locked there, and therefore he was denied. But this, of course, has a lot of challenges because unlike the previous lockdown, where people who were moving up and down, there was an instruction that in every village, newcomers into the village should be held somewhere until they are checked and confirmed to be free before they mix with the community. This time around, this is not going to happen. And therefore, these movements means that there is a possibility of moving a virus from one place to the other. I can confirm, Simon, that for the past 5 days, day by day, I have seen the number of people at least putting on masks increasing in Mbale town and its surroundings. However, the issue of social distancing is still a challenge. When you look at the numbers, Samson, Mbale cumulatively from April 2020 until today has registered, I beg your pardon, the regional referral hospital, which is the regional treatment center, has registered 580 admissions. Of course, one would say that the numbers have not been so worrying, but when you look at the deaths have been 44. And out of these, we have just 3 women who died just between 3rd and 6th. One, of course, was 63 years, and then the other one was 80 years. But when you go to Bududa, where results coming in today indicate that the students, 32 students from Bududa Secondary School have tested positive, including their head teacher who had just been transferred to Magale Secondary School. And as we speak, his contacts have also tested positive. So, of course, this also has now posed a big worry to the community, especially in the rural areas where we thought that there has not been a big problem. It's now evident that there could be people could be sitting on a time bomb. That is the situation in this region, Samson. But also the challenge is that the vaccines in many of the districts have run out. There is a stock out of vaccines. And then the other challenge is the issue of managing the capacity to manage the patients, especially those who are being monitored in the community, like those who are undertaking home care, like in Bududa, the 32 students of Bududa Secondary School, and many more. The authorities there seem not to be having enough capacity to do all this surveillance and also monitor those cases. That is the situation so far. Over to you at the command center, Samson.
Gerald, I can confirm that the disk where you stock anchors' names has a virus I am Sis Samson, not Simon. But I can understand there's a lot of virus moving around town. Gerald Matembo out there in the night. Certainly, it's a very interesting one in which we are working today.
Definitely. Well, there's always a light side to everything. And I can say that when we had the total lockdown, my WhatsApp messages were full with pictures of people who were baking cakes and baking samosas because they were home this whole time.
Yeah.
So they resorted to baking. Now that we are hit with the second wave, the messages are the herbal medicines that we can use to treat COVID. As to which one works and which one doesn't work, I guess we have to try. People have moved away from what they call the Mzungu medicine back to our African medicine.
And I'm not going to talk all sorts of leaves that are very popular lately. Some of those leaves you can't even say on air. But what I can tell you on air is that to keep ourselves with a lot of energy, there's some snack moving around here. One of these days, I'll tell you what that snack is. Don't even guess. You won't. Let's go for a break.
Welcome back. There were mixed feelings in schools and tertiary institutions following the closure of schools to prevent the second wave of COVID-19. Some learners and parents broke down as they arrived at school to pick their children, while some school administrators that were heavily indebted wondered how they were going to pay their loans.
It's this directive issued by President Museveni last evening to prevent the second wave of COVID-19 that left parents, learners and teachers emotionally broken down. By 7 a.m. at St. Kizito Secondary School in Namugongo, the learners had already packed their belongings, ready to return home. The learners, particularly from Senior 2, seemed most affected. They had been to school for just 3 weeks after 1 year of lockdown and were now going back home for a period they are not certain about. Should another extension be announced?
Being informed for 2 full years, we are growing. I really even don't know how to explain it.
I feel so bad because I cannot sit Form 2 for 3 years right now. And we have been at school for 3 weeks and they are taking us back. And our parents are paid a lot of money.
Even when the emotionally disturbed learners don't dispute the decision to send them home, they could not hold on to the pain. Some say they broke down into tears upon hearing the president's announcement. These are some of the students who by noon had not yet been collected by their parents. They are ready with their luggage to go home, but they are going home with their hearts hanging.
I really felt bad. Even some of us cried.
Because we paid a lot of school fees, but problem is like now we are supposed to spend less time at school. We spent less time at school, and like now they are closing so early, we don't feel that well.
A similar feeling was shared by learners in Kasangati High School, also in Wakiso district.
I was broken down because first of all I thought of the class which I'm in. I thought that I'm going to come back in that class because we had not yet done the end of term exams.
But we are just praying to God to help us and at least our president of this Uganda hear our cry.
Much as the parents need their children alive, they are haunted by their hard-earned money they paid for school fees just a week ago.
Of course, it is affecting me financially, morally.
It's really bad because our children, they are growing old. And these 2 years without even learning very well. They always close and they go home before finish their examination. Yeah, they keep on repeating the same class.
But the teachers are bothered about the psychosocial condition of their learners, especially girl children. Before letting them go with their parents, a short session of counseling was held.
We began talking to them. We talked to them, we counseled them because it was not easy. Bringing this news to them wasn't that easy. Therefore, we had to sit down and counsel them. And we even urged the parents out there to continue talking to them.
Parents need to get closer to the children, to know whatever they are doing and to know whatever they are planning. Besides, their mental faculties have been greatly affected.
Following the previous lockdown, several girl children while at home landed in wrong hands and were sexually abused. Some got pregnant and dropped out of school. They are not sure how this lockdown will play out, especially if it persists beyond the 42 days. Richard Olweny, NBS, live at 9.
Several people, including students, remained stranded at different parks in Kampala as they rushed to the villages to beat the Wednesday deadline when vehicles will not be allowed to move from one district to another. Students, together with other people, looked stranded, pondering on their next move as they claimed the transport fares had been hiked. We have the details.
Following the new COVID-19 guidelines that saw the president suspend inter-district public transport starting 10th June, as a measure to curb the spread of coronavirus, hundreds of Ugandans flocked the different tax parks to travel to their respective villages in fear of another total lockdown. By 4 p.m., hundreds were still stranded. At Global Bus Park, the management asked travelers to line up, but the numbers were overwhelmed with long queues. Those who could not stand for long hours were seen seated on their luggage, hoping against hope.
Yeah, I'm still hopeful, but if all doesn't go well, I just go back home.
5 buses came in, they went out. 5 more buses came in, and still nothing.
Even I don't think that maybe I will go there in Barara because I'm seeing people many.
Most of the travelers, especially those plying the western route, were surprised to learn that the transport fares had been increased from 30,000 to 50,000 shillings.
The transport, they are saying that now they are asking for 60.
You never know what will happen after 42 days. They might just extend us more 42 days before you know it, the whole year.
The situation was not any different at Nawaiba Park. Here, students looked stranded.
Now we are here, it's too much, people are too much, there are too many.
Yeah, so stranded, all people from all schools.
I came here at around 11 a.m. But up to now, I'm not getting any means to take me to the village.
These were equally concerned about the transport hike, with giving similar reasons as to why they are running away from the city.
Like you see, there are very many people, and then unfortunately the buses are not there. And if you live here, if it comes at 5, imagine, what time will you travel from Kampala to up country?
They are telling me to go to Mbale. They want 60,000.
Christine Namanda, the operations manager at Golan Buses, says given the big numbers in the park, passengers are at a high risk of being exposed to the COVID-19 infections.
People are very many. The spread it might be very wide, and the effect can be very wide. Reason, because where they're also going, they're also innocent people who are there and they are carrying it.
Travellers and transporters are asking the government to consider extending the 10th June deadline.
If the government can assist us to give us a humble time so that we can go in shifts, can say at least a week.
But at the end of the time, in these 3 days, if they are not enough, I believe the government will make additional time for these people to be ferried up to their jurisdiction where they belong.
Shamim Nabakoza, Alan Mwesigwa, NBS, live at 9.
The Hoima District COVID-19 barrier team has resorted to asking for funds from those who have lost their loved ones suspected to have died of COVID-19 as a way of facilitating them to execute their duties. Families now have to pay 500,000 shillings, something the district task force has attributed to the lack of funds, and now calling for help from the line ministry with worry of the risks that may arise out of the vice. Kathba Chigozi has the details.
The Hoima District COVID-19 Task Force was given 165 million shillings to help in facilitating the sub-committees of the task force. The money, according to Samuel Chisembo, the head of the Hoima District Task Force, was distributed among 4 pillars of case management, surveillance and laboratory, risk communication and logistics. The 165 million shillings is now no more, hence crippling most activities, with the most affected being the barrier team, which falls under case management committee.
The moment when a suspect dies, the family and the burial teams have to agree on how to conduct these burials. In other words, the family members have to facilitate the burial teams to offer a decent burial to the deceased, which I find very tricky on the side of the community.
Without paying the 500,000 shillings, the barrier team cannot offer the service.
The information that I've been able to gather is that these teams at the regional referral hospital ask for between 400 and 600,000. I'm told that it involves treating the body, then personal protection equipment, disinfectants, and all that, which should be, in my thinking and our thinking, a responsibility of government, really.
However, the task force is worried of the risks that might arise from asking families to facilitate the barrier team, hence asking the Ministry of Health to reach out to them.
So we are likely to have a scenario where people stay in the communities, fall sick, they don't turn up to test, someone passes on, and they treat the person as a mere normal death. So you can imagine the implication that comes with that.
Hoima District has 239 COVID-19 cumulative cases, with 6 of these in the COVID-19 treatment unit, 89 under home care, and only registered 10 deaths. Cuthbert Chigozi, NBS, Lavat 9.
Moving on, the Church of Uganda is stuck on how to proceed with the 60 billion fundraising drive that was launched on Sunday for the church house after President Museveni declared an immediate lockdown on churches for the next 42 days.
Communal prayers in mosques, churches, or in stadia and other open-air venues are suspended for 42 days.
The presidential directive, which clamped a lockdown on places of worship for the next 42 days, appears to be a big slap in the face of the Church of Uganda fundraising campaign to raise 60 billion shillings to save Church House. Archbishop Dr. Samuel Stephen Kazimba Mugalu says that the directive should not stop believers from sending in their contributions via mobile money and other means so that the church beats the July 2021 deadline of repayment.
Yes, we can. Church House Love Gift fundraising campaign will continue. Worship will continue online, and contributions can be made at Equity Bank or through MTN or Airtel mobile money. Please continue to give.
Kazimba admits that the 42 days without church may leave many broken spiritually, hence asked believers not to retire as they did during last year's lockdown.
I am calling on all husbands and fathers to step up and take responsibility for leading your families in daily home prayers and in Sunday worship.
The Archbishop says the Church of Uganda will use the 42 days lockdown as a period for praying and fasting for Uganda to be saved from the deadly COVID-19 pandemic. Daniel Lutaya, Josephine Namakombi, NBS.
Tonight, experts have expressed mixed reactions on the presidential directives and the impact on businesses at a macro level and different sectors at a macro level. While economists believe that the president was considerate to the economy, business experts dissent. Hakim Wampamba has the details.
The increase in the cases of COVID-19 prompted the presidential address that, among other things, closed the inter-district travels for 42 days, traveling to Category 1 countries, weekly non-food markets, and the monthly cattle market auctions, among others. Economic experts have, however, hailed the government for being considerate as the approach chosen can allow for economic activities to thrive and business recovery. Professor Augustus Nwagaba, an economist and business consultant, says that the new measures were well thought of.
I think the government is trying to strike a balance on people's survival, but also to ensure that the economy can also thrive. So that's why you find that the president tried to close many crowded places, but also make sure that the markets, the informal sector, particularly the borders, the saloons, the restaurants, remain operating.
However, the chairman, Kampala City Traders Association, Kasita, Everest Kayondo, dissents, arguing that the inter-district travel restrictions would hurt the traders a lot.
Definitely, it has a very huge impact because the sector which was left closed, where you are not allowed to maybe leave one district and then access another district. Seriously, these people who are operating in Kampala actually don't have their customers within Kampala. Their customers are far beyond Kampala.
Kayondo adds that the interlinkages of the sectors closed affects the other operational ones in equal measure.
That means the other sectors which are even working actually will suffer inevitably, because if you tell me agriculture will continue moving and you are selling to people who are no longer earning and they are no longer having a disposable income, definitely you will not make it.
With a slowdown of businesses and sales, it's likely to have aggregate supply exceed the aggregate demand as the productive sectors like agriculture, fishing, manufacturing, construction, shopping malls were allowed to work under strict adherence to the standard operating procedures.
Should do is to find a way of stabilizing these prices. So I'm now urging government very seriously to consider what we call stabilization fund and buffer stock.
Revitalizing the Ugandan economy at a time when the global trade has plummeted by almost 5.3% is considered key.
To invest in hospitals, in drugs, in vaccines.
Then we must observe the following. Make sure you observe the SOPs, what government is saying and what the Ministry of Health is telling us. Let's do that.
But as businesses struggle to recover from the previous lockdown, experts have encouraged business owners to struggle for survival.
So survival is now key and it's number one. So we are not looking at making a profit.
With the economy registering negative growth for 2 successive quarters, it is highly expected that the presidential directives will bite harder. Hakim Wampamba, NBS, live at 9.
Comprehensive COVID-19 bulletin, and we hope you have taken away some pointers. Put on your masks, sanitize, social distance, only move out if you have to. Samson, as someone who is multi-talented, how would you want to summarize this COVID-19 bulletin?
But before we get to the multi-talent, looking at heights in that shot, I'm going to look for heels. I think I need them. I'm already looking a lot shorter than I should be looking. But back to your question, and a very important question. I think you look at the stories we've been airing tonight, and all of a sudden I've started feeling the symptoms. You hear so much COVID and then you feel temperature and all. But I think it always comes back to that Michael Jackson song, Heal the World. I think I like the chorus where he says, heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make it a better place for you and for me. Now, if you social distance, if you sanitize and you wear your mask, you are healing the world and making it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. Bring more snack tomorrow. I think we did fine today.
Definitely we did. Interesting bulletin. A bit sad, but I think we needed to wake Ugandans up, and I hope the message was loud and clear.
Well, she is Sheila, and anybody who is suggesting I'm very smart, she chooses the colors. Mine is to put them on. Good night.
Good night.
Samson is my name.